Call of Duty is known for many things, especially in what many would consider the golden era. Whether that be the most insane weapons, some things that drove you absolutely mad, or provided you with hours of enjoyment with your friends, there's no shortage of iconic pieces of Call of Duty, whether new or old. So with that in mind, let's talk a little bit about today, in no particular order, 10 of the most iconic kill streaks in Call of Duty history. I polled you guys over on Twitter a bit ago and wanted to hear your feedback, so this is by no means any definitive listing, and if there's one that we don't discuss and you think would be a good fit for the most iconic streaks, feel free to let me know your thoughts in the comments down below. As well, if you want to be a part of these in the future, feel free to follow me over on Twitter so you can toss your hat in the ring when asked about future things like this. But enough small talk, let's talk about the iconic streaks in Call of Duty history. Let's start out with some of the classics. I may be a bit biased here, but when I think about Call of Duty kill streaks in a game that had an absolute plethora of worthwhile streaks, I think about Modern Warfare 2. Your opinion may differ, and that's totally cool if so, but we're going to be jumping back to Modern Warfare 2 to kick off this top 10 list. If you were among the legends to know what 7, 11, and 25 are by heart, then you know exactly where we're going. First up, we've got the Harriers. For your 7 kills, this was the start of, almost depending on the lobby and the map, a guaranteed nuke streak. Harriers, unless you were really unfortunate, almost always chained to your next kill streak, but starting with an airstrike, 2 of those 3 planes would drop a payload that had some pretty decent explosive range, and that 3rd plane would then just go to town on the enemies, lasering them with no mercy. That zap sound was one that may have haunted many players, but also may have been the best sound to those working towards their ultimate kill streak goals. Usually you'd end up pulling off a handful of kills with the Harrier, and again, almost always chained through to your possible next kill streak, the Chopper Gunner, or another streak of similar value. If not, you were always at least tremendously close, but it definitely did some work anytime you called it in. But speaking of the Chopper Gunner, Modern Warfare 2's Chopper Gunner was again second in line for that fabled 7, 11, 25 combo that so many may have used over the years. The Chopper Gunner was devastating, and while a controllable streak, it was still on rails in a sense where it was not freely pilotable as compared to next year's release of the Hind gunship. But that didn't really make much of a difference because again, it was an absolute behemoth of a streak, lasting roughly 55 seconds and only needing 2 to 3 shots to connect to get that kill. There was almost no safe haven for players who came up against the Chopper Gunner. If you had a map that was open like Wasteland, Afghan, Derail, Rundown, or even maps with just a bit of cover, you were almost guaranteed to make a huge dent into that kill streak that you were chasing next to, if not immediately obtaining it. The chugging of the machine guns was and still is an insurance to intimidate an enemy, but also assert a bit of power, because it was almost universally known that if you were seeing a name in the kill feed over and over through the Chopper Gunner, somebody was getting closer to that nuke streak. But whatever your poison after the Chopper Gunner, you were sure to be set up for another great run afterwards. But moving along, when we take a look at our more so recent Call of Duty titles, and more specifically Black Ops 4, our current title, many people wonder why a staple from the Black Ops series hasn't returned, and it's a perfect segue into an examination of yet another streak in COD history that is an iconic presence and has had its praises sung for. That being the Orbital VSAT, Blackbird, or even Black Ops 3's Hater. You can pick your favorite, but the point remains among all, they were all a pub stomper's best friend. Born out of the connections with the Black Ops campaign, the Blackbird soared to heights of public opinion as fast as the actual craft. Revealing where every player was on the map in real time, including the direction they were facing, it allowed you to completely know everything you needed about the upcoming engagements and how exactly to handle your next move in order to beat your enemy. A quick little side note, the footage you'll be seeing in Black Ops as well as Black Ops 2 footage here in this video, yes, was recorded on private matches, but that's given the fact that player population is too low to adequately acquire a connection strong enough that doesn't result in tremendous lag or being consistently placed into the same game over and over again with aimbotters and other modding. So a little explanation here as to why you're seeing some bot gameplay, but regardless, Black Ops introduced the Blackbird, and it was a huge success, and then made its way over into the following Black Ops 2 and Black Ops 3. For whatever reason though, Black Ops 4 does not have such a streak, and while it was described as to give more purpose to recon, the choice seems to be a step back in the evolution of streaks in Call of Duty. However, that doesn't negate the absolute iconic impact previous versions had on the series. Another absolute classic from Black Ops 2 was one that perhaps was the most fear-instilling streak within Black Ops 2, that being the Swarm. For 1900 score, which by the way was now score and not just kills, so you could chain your kills and say domination flag captures together and so on, but for 1900 score you could then call in a swarm of hunter-killer drones that would absolutely decimate your competition. There was no hiding for the most part for the enemy. Unless they buried themselves in the depths of a building, the moment they stepped out or even got close to a window, it was back to the respawn points for them. Lasting around 50 seconds, it felt like an eternity, and your kill feed was absolutely lit up with the name of whoever called in the streak. The only thing you'd have to be cautious of if you were the one who called it in was how close to the enemy you actually got. Just because the swarm could have your 6 didn't make you impervious to the blast radius that it created. I recall many times where I had not only my kill stolen by one of the hunter killers from the swarm, but as I rounded the corner in a CQC engagement, somebody just popped up, it also would have killed me because technically that was my explosive that went off right in front of me. But still, it was an insane streak, even given the risk if you were running around outside while it was going on. As for our 5th spot on this list, we're gonna cheat a little bit here, okay? That could be our little secret, you don't have to tell anybody. But for this one, I want to give the limelight to both choppers in Black Ops, the literally dubbed chopper gunner and the gunship. While I feel the Huey or chopper gunner was the more recognized of the two, the gunship itself was equally as devastating on the battlefields. For 9 kills, you got to be the gunner of an attack helicopter that circled the map for about 2 passes. The minigun in front of you was more than capable of tearing through the enemies, and on the right map, you could easily spawn trap players with ease. Even without seeing the feed, hearing that thing, you knew it was all over, but when you stepped outside, you got that confirmation. As for the gunship, for an 11 kill streak, you got to do something you couldn't do with any chopper gunners in the franchise, that being you could control its flight path. While still restricted to some boundaries, you had the ability to navigate how you'd like. You could stay stationary, or you could swap to another spawn on your own terms and not have to wait for another 15 seconds to pass before rounding to an area that was viewable. Armed with a machine gun as well as 2 rockets that would replenish after a short cooldown, it was certainly one to be remembered. Enemy AC-130 above! Let's be real, that was probably one of the most recognizable audio clips of the entire franchise, not just Modern Warfare 2, and there's no way we're gonna leave this one out. The AC-130 was the first of its kind in the multiplayer end of the series, and man, was it one to be remembered as well. While we did see it in Modern Warfare in the mission Death from Above, we never got to use it outside of that. However, in Modern Warfare 2, we had the ability to cycle through the 105mm, 40mm, and 25mm rounds, absolutely shredding through our enemy, and that incoming screech was more than enough to instill the fear in each and every one of them. The only real downside of the AC-130 was that there was a built-in restriction to aim, meaning that there were parts of some maps that literally could not be targeted just because of the way the pathing worked that wouldn't allow for you to actually drag your aim low enough, or in some cases high enough or far enough to the right or left to be able to target those areas and get your shots off. But for the most part, it was no problem given various other spawn points and multiple maps not having corner spawns or issues with pathing. One of the big debates that persist with the AC-130 is whether you choose the AC-130 or the chopper gunner, and while both are different in various aspects, the underlying facts still persist that with both, if you see a player lighting it up in that kill feed, then they're more than likely getting closer to that nuke. And speaking of which, there's no way you'd consider that we'd pass over the nuke. The one that stood the test of time even with the introduction of the Moab, Chemstrike, DNA bomb, deatomizer, and V2 rocket, since the original nuke is still, without a doubt, at least in my mind, the most iconic streak out of Call of Duty's history, above the rest by far, at least in my books. I knew every lobby that I went into in Modern Warfare 2's prime that I wanted the nuke, no questions asked. That was my goal. As well, since the ability to end the game has been taken out with each of the following introductions of a similar streak, it doesn't really hold as much weight as the original. You got the kills and then the ultimate bragging rights that you got to say you literally ended the game just based off your in-game accolades. For 25 kills, it was tough in some ways, but with the right setups, like we talked about the 7-11-25 being one of the most common, it was certainly much more obtainable with the right supporting cast on your class. A ton of times I got my Harriers and knew, man, I was dropping a nuke on this lobby. And still to this day, it's my own personal favorite. Now, admittedly, it is really hard to top that one and to keep the list going, but again, with no particular order to this list, we can talk about another great streak of COD history, that being the Attack Dogs. Whether starting with the original in World at War as your top 7 kill streak, or all the way to Black Ops 2, the 3-game span of them were absolutely a fantastic run and would light up the kill feed. And I guess if you wanted to count your robot dogs in a sense, the Raps in Black Ops 3 could count towards this as well, but for the most part, man's best friend was also man's most destructive allies in most lobbies. As with the Swarm, there was really no hiding for the enemy, with dogs also being able to clear out buildings where the Swarm could not, but the feed would absolutely be lit up with the name of the enemies and the one wreaking the havoc. For 9 kills, we're going to round into the penultimate listing here on this video, that being the Pavlo from Modern Warfare 2. Again, coming back to what I think is probably the heaviest of hitters in terms of games overall with kill streaks, the Pavlo was a heavily armored attack chopper that would patrol the map for 60 seconds. It was just like the attack chopper, but it ended up having twice the armor and 2 turrets to its name, so therefore it could do a little bit more destructive damage. Now, this was one that, again, if you stepped outside, you definitely were aware of its presence, but as with some of the others, it might not be as devastating because you could stay inside for the most part. And while there were maps like, again, Wasteland, Derail, and other maps considering that were very open, you also still could work around the map with enough ease that you could stay out of the range of this thing, but chances are if you called it in, it's definitely worth your 9 kills in some regard. And the final mention here in terms of kill streaks we'll talk about that have been absolutely iconic in the COD franchise goes back to Black Ops 2. And this one, by popular demand of you guys actually tweeting me this one, deals with a Lodestar, a 1500 score streak that was the equivalent of Modern Warfare 3's Reaper point streak, but it allows you to have multiple missiles and guide them to the ground to make sure that you have the best possible connection from aerial support to the ground and making some waves. Lasting around 45 seconds, the streak was obviously much more useful in open maps, but still could do some damage for those maps that had plenty a bit of cover as well. It all just depended on the angles that you could get and the flow of the map itself and where those players were going. But it was definitely a streak that would allow you to get your worthwhile use out of it. But that said, that's where we're gonna wrap it up. That's been 10 of the most iconic streaks in COD history, or I guess again, with our little secret that we kind of did a 2-for-1, 11 streaks in COD history that have been absolutely iconic. Let me know your thoughts in the comment section down below. Do you guys miss any of these streaks? Do you wish there would be some iteration of them in either the current games or upcoming games? Which ones did you guys like the most? And of course, if there were any that you would like to add to the list, feel free to let me know your thoughts in the comments down below. Again, though, make sure you guys follow me over on Twitter so you guys can get your picks in here for future videos like this. But if you enjoy the video, make sure you drop a like down below, and of course, subscribe to the channel if you guys are new and want to stay with all things Call of Duty, whether that be look backs at Call of Duty history like this, or anything relating to the current title of Black Ops 4, Multiplayer, Blackout, and Zombies. We got you covered with all that stuff, so if you're interested in any of that, hit that subscribe button so you don't miss a single thing. If you guys also want to follow me over on Twitter and Instagram, again, those are the best places to get connected outside of YouTube. Practically live on both those, so if you guys want to strike up a conversation, ask me a question, whatever it may be, that link is down there in the description below. Well, that's it, out of the way. Thank you guys all so much for watching. My name is Espresso. Take care, and peace.